we come on the air tonight, Israel is again ramping up its attacks on Gaza, saying it has no plans to stop. We'll tell you about their next stage of the war and why it's now feared even a ceasefire won't be enough to solve a humanitarian crisis that's getting worse by the minute. Then, American military bases under attack again today in the Mideast. We'll tell you where the rockets were fired and how the U.S. is striking back. And thousands of migrants heading for the southern border ahead of a major meeting between the U.S. and Mexico tomorrow. The latest moves to control the surge with thousands of people on their way north. Then, millions facing dangerous weather tonight as snow, high winds, and heavy rains sweep across the plains. We'll tell you where it's heading next and what it might mean for people heading home from the holidays. Plus, no holiday shopping on this day after Christmas. We're live at the mall with what people are returning and what they might be buying for a bargain. Hey, I'm Brian in for Hallie tonight, and we are coming on the air with breaking news. Israel expanding its intense bombardment of Gaza into urban refugee camps in what it's calling a new battle zone. This happening as a top Israeli leader meets in Washington tonight for key talks, a source familiar tells NBC News. Those talks likely about where this war could go next, as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is defying the growing international calls for a ceasefire, saying Israel will keep fighting in Gaza until Hamas is destroyed. The UN now saying a humanitarian ceasefire is the, quote, bare minimum that needs to happen in Gaza, saying the incredibly dire situation there and destruction is unprecedented. A World Health Organization medical worker there tells our team there's nowhere safe in Gaza as people wait to die. And this, as we're getting some glimmer of hope, Egypt now floating a plan to end the war. But what exactly is in this proposal and whether or not either side will listen, not clear right now. All of it as we're again seeing mounting concerns that instability in the region could expand with yet another attack on a U.S. military base in Syria just in the last few hours. We've got team coverage, Courtney Kuby at the Pentagon, Aaron Gilchrist at the White House. We'll start off with Jay. Jay, tell us about what we know about this new push from Israel that's now expanding into central Gaza. What's the significance of this new stage in Israel's campaign, or what are the human implications given how dire these accounts are in Gaza? Understanding, Jay Gray, that you are in Tel Aviv.
Yeah, look, Brian, first of all, the human toll in this, the UN says, is as difficult, as deadly as it's been since this war began over the last 48 hours. It would appear that the intent right now of the IDF is to move into the central region. They tell us that they're trying to identify command and control centers on the ground in the central part of Gaza, just outside of Gaza City, and they are still working to identify and eliminate tunnels on the ground as well. Of course, this all supported by airstrikes. The IDF saying right now that they have killed at least one senior Hamas official during those airstrikes, but not naming who that may be at this point. We do know that early this afternoon, the UN said that more than 100 people had already been killed since Christmas in the area. And we heard from the chief of staff of the army, the Israeli army, and I want to quote exactly what he said when it comes to this war. He said, and I'm quoting, "It's expected to continue for many more months." So it appears, despite growing global pressure to at least scale things back and be a bit more precise with their attacks, that the intent here is to continue full speed ahead.
And, Jay, you talk about that global pressure. I mean, tell us about the state of diplomacy, because a top Israeli advisor is in Washington today, and now we're hearing that Egypt is trying to broker talks. So what more do we know about these conversations at this point, and might they suggest some de-escalation soon?
Well, look, Egypt has proposed a plan that would end the war, they say. It has been roundly criticized, not only by Israeli officials during a war cabinet meeting last night, but by Hamas. Both sides saying that this is not a plan that's going to work. It basically calls for a ceasefire, a release of the hostages, and then an independent group coming in and running Gaza until things can get back to an operational status there. Both sides saying that's just simply not going to happen. There is mounting pressure. Obviously, these talks in Washington are going to be very important, but you're getting pressure not only globally, but from within this country as well, especially from the families of hostages who want to see their loved ones come home.
Yeah, certainly hoping that talks at some point can materialize into some tangible action there. Jay Gray, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Yeah. Well, we're learning in just the last few hours about attacks and strikes overseas involving U.S. military forces in Syria and the Red Sea. NBC News hearing from 2 U.S. defense officials that a base in Syria was targeted by multiple rockets fired by militants. Those officials saying there were no injuries or damage in that attack. At the same time, U.S. forces in the Red Sea shot down attack Houthi drones, ballistic and cruise missiles headed for targets in that crucial shipping channel to the Suez Canal. All of it just the latest in these skirmishes between U.S. troops and militias in the region, coming hours after a series of retaliatory American airstrikes on militant groups in Iraq. You can see the aftermath of those U.S. strikes here. Massive craters, burnt cars, also destroyed buildings. These airstrikes ordered by President Biden in response to a drone attack on a U.S. base located in Iraq on Sunday. The attack hurting 3 American service members, leaving 1 in critical condition. Let's bring in NBC's Courtney Kuby, who's keeping a close eye on this for us. So, Courtney, today's rocket attack on a base in Syria, tell us about what it means and what it says about American efforts, including Sunday's series of airstrikes, to try to keep these Iran-backed militias in check.
So the attack at patrol base Shadadi, which we saw on the map there a moment ago in northeastern Syria, it is in what has been a continuing effort, the U.S. military, to respond to attacks, to deter future attacks. Well, we've seen them continue, even as the U.S. responds. So the attack yesterday, Christmas afternoon, local time, Christmas morning back here in the United States, in northern Iraq, in Erbil, was what the military calls a one-way attack drone. That's a drone that's packed with explosives. They fly it in. Usually it's a sort of a set it and forget it. It has a target and it just goes in and strikes it and explodes. We don't exactly know what on the base it hit, but we do know, Brian, that 3 U.S. personnel were injured. 1 critically injured. I can tell you that we learned late this afternoon that critically injured service member is now in stable condition and being transferred to Landstuhl, the medical facility at Landstuhl, Germany. But the U.S. military then conducting retaliatory strikes hours later, hitting 3 locations of Iranian-backed militia groups called Kataib Hezbollah. And officials at U.S. Central Command, U.S. CENTCOM, saying that, in fact, not only did they destroy those 3 facilities, but they also killed a number of militia members. Why that's critical? This was intended to send a message not just to those militia groups to stop these attacks on bases, but it was also sending a message to Iran, who backs, trains, and funds these groups, Brian.
Yeah, and Courtney, I mean, this is just part of the ripple effects from what's happening in nearby Israel. But the concern here is about all of this escalating into something a lot bigger than these tit-for-tat attacks and strikes. So how concerned should we be about this turning into more than that and the U.S. having to get even more involved physically in the region?
It's a constant concern among defense officials here at the Pentagon, and it's one that they are really worried about as we see not just the sorts of attacks in Erbil and in Shadadi, but what we learned about late this afternoon in the Red Sea. Another attack by Houthi rebels in Yemen against commercial shipping in the southern Red Sea and in the Bab el-Mandeb. This was a huge attack, Brian. We're talking about 12 drones, 5 missiles, land attack cruise missiles, anti-ship ballistic missiles. The U.S. military, a U.S. Navy ship, the USS Laboon, shot down some of those missiles, some of those drones, but there was also an F-18 fighter jet that shot some of them down as well. This is a large attack. The U.S. military is very concerned that one of these attacks, whether it's a drone, a missile fired by the Houthis, will be successful, drawing this into a larger regional conflict and pulling the U.S. military more directly into it, Brian.
Yeah, and I think it's, 105 attacks since mid-October in both Syria and Iraq. So, again, this is not a new development. Courtney, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Well, let's go to Aaron Gilchrist now. He's posted up at the White House for us. So let me swing that same question over to you, asking about the concern within the administration that these militant attacks on U.S. troops will have to ultimately force escalation in the region.
Yeah, Brian, it's really been a concern for the administration, really from day one after Hamas attacked Israel. We've heard President Biden and others in the administration say that they didn't want to see the conflict in Gaza and in Israel expand outside of those borders. And so we know that the administration had the Department of Defense move thousands of troops into the region. The USS Gerald R. Ford and the USS Eisenhower carrier strike groups moved into that region. Courtney talked about the ships that are a part of that group, the aircraft that are a part of that group as well. And they were there to be a deterrent to other groups getting involved with what's happening between Israel and Hamas. And so we've still seen Hezbollah in Lebanon take action inside Israel. We've seen, as Courtney was talking about, these attacks in Iraq and in Syria, as well as the activity that we've been watching in the Red Sea. But the reality for the Department of Defense is that it believes that these ships being in place, these troops being in place, will operate as a deterrent from Iran taking a larger action in the region.
Well, certainly close eyes to the White House as these developments continue. Aaron Gilchrist at the White House, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Well, also happening right now, the largest migrant caravan we've seen in over a year headed for the southern border. You can see around 8,000 migrants in these pictures all walking together through Mexico, some spending Christmas night sleeping on scraps of cardboard, the organizers of the caravan say. And the timing here is notable because Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to travel to Mexico tomorrow for negotiations on the record-breaking numbers of migrants seeking entry into the United States. For more on this, let's bring in NBC News correspondent Sam Brock in Miami. So, Sam, tell me more about where this caravan is at now and what could happen at the border when they show up.
Sure. So here's the interesting thing so far, Brian, is that they're in Tapachula, Mexico, at least started there a couple of days ago on Christmas Eve, like you said. 8,000 people now. It was only 6,000 a couple of days ago. Did it just increase within the last 24 hours by a couple of thousand people? It's possible. It's what we're hearing on the ground. But beyond just that, this group is roughly 1,900 miles away from El Paso. So depending upon which border crossing they're going to right now, you're talking about another 3 or 4 weeks of travel. It has the potential to be a migrant caravan that's the biggest that we've seen in years, certainly since last June, but potentially significantly larger than that, 11,000, 12,000 people. We'll have to find out. But as far as the numbers and urgency involved there, we're at a state right now, according to U.S. officials, where the surge has reached levels that have never been seen before. Unprecedented. More than 2 million people each of the last 2 years as we wrap up 2023, 2 million in 2022, another 2+ million apprehensions this year as well. That would be the equivalent, Brian, of basically everybody in Miami-Dade County just showing up at the U.S.-Mexico border tomorrow, or a third of El Salvador, or a third of the entire country of Nicaragua. That is what officials are up against right now as Secretary Blinken meets with the Mexican president and other high-level diplomats tomorrow.
I mean, that is crazy perspective there, Sam. And again, these are human beings we have to remember here. But I mean, this is also coming at an immense time of pressure and scrutiny on policy as well, because Antony Blinken is going to be in Mexico City tomorrow in this precarious time for border policy negotiations. So what could come next? They're understanding that Mexico has been trying to help the U.S. with this, but clearly the solutions aren't enough right now.
Sure. U.S., the United States and Mexico share the goal here of stemming the migratory flow. How we get there, of course, is going to be a matter of opinions here. It's a closed-door meeting that we're told is going to be about 1 o'clock tomorrow. If you are Mexico and Lopez Obrador, what he said, he wants aid going out to the countries where many of these migrants are fleeing from, be it Cuba or Venezuela. He wants to see a restoration of U.S.-Cuba bilateral negotiations. He would like to see sanctions eased on a couple of those countries. If you're the United States right now, you want to be able to actually move cargo from one side to the other, U.S. and Mexico, or vice versa. We know that there were a couple of rail crossings that were closed with huge economic repercussions because there were so many people, at least the fear of them, using these sorts of transportation devices, if you will, to get back and forth or being smuggled back and forth. And then also, obviously, the sheer number of people. They want to see more enforcement from Mexican authorities who have sort of relaxed some of their standards back in May to include some of the migrants that were coming from Venezuela, from Guatemala, from El Salvador that weren't reaching the United States, were staying in Mexico. Well, what the United States is asking for right now is a tightening of policy. These are just some of the subject matters that are going to be on the table tomorrow, Brian. We'll have to wait to find out more.
All right, Sam Brock in Miami. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, it's going to be a snowy and even frozen day after Christmas for millions of people under blizzard and winter warnings today as snow and freezing rain comes down in the Great Plains. Parts of Nebraska, Colorado, and Wyoming have already gotten 10 inches. And in the Dakotas, the ice is to blame for tree damage and power outages. And in places where the snow is tapering off, heavy winds, ice, and sleet are creating some dangerous driving conditions. Check out these trucks and cars that are skidding on major highways like Interstate 80. Nebraska State Police says they responded to 150 accidents on Christmas Day alone. Those people clearly stuck. But air travel bouncing back on this day after Christmas, as Southwest says it's getting back on track after canceling more than 500 flights on Christmas. The company is blaming bad weather around the Chicago area. Michelle Grossman will tell us where the bad weather could be headed next. But let's start off with NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett from Chicago's O'Hare Airport. So, Maura, recap yesterday's disruptions and why Southwest appeared to be more affected by the weather than some other airlines. This a year after they had issues memorably in 2022.
Right, Brian. It's a stark difference from the 2 million people left stranded by Southwest last year, but it still had a severe impact on people looking to travel home for the holidays because the severe fog that swept through Chicago over the weekend kind of percolated into Monday. And so a majority of those hundreds of flights canceled by Southwest coming actually from Chicago's Midway Airport, that kind of trickled into Monday as well. But as of early this morning, Southwest said that their operations were stabilized and they were working as hard as they could to make sure that everyone could get where they needed to go. Again, a very different situation than what we saw last year. And that's due in part to the fact that Southwest and other major U.S. airlines really stepped it up when it comes to hiring pilots, flight attendants, other support workers. And they're really seeing that payoff, considering by and large, we haven't seen the big cancellations and delays that we saw last year. Southwest hit a little harder, particularly because they are headquartered here in Chicago. Midway is one of their major hubs, and they send a ton of flights every day out of there, especially around the holidays. So that's why we saw some of that imbalance there. But that investment Airlines promised to make, and that Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg really held them accountable, making travelers surprisingly happy here today.
And obviously, Maura, for those that are trying to travel this week, they're wondering, okay, will any of those problems bleed into any travel on the New Year's Eve weekend? Any indication about whether or not that might be the case?
Weather is going to be the big wild card on that one, given all of the blizzard warnings, the snow, the ice that you all just read through. And that's something I'll let Michelle tackle in terms of the long lookout for the week. We are looking at about 5,000 delays and about 150 cancellations across the country today here at O'Hare. Not really feeling that impact. It's largely been centralized in Denver and Atlanta. And so today hasn't been too crazy as people still recuperate from the holiday, probably hanging back with their families a little longer. The TSA predicting, though, 18 million people had flown through airports in the last week. Those same people have to turn around, get home, go on their own holidays. And so they're predicting, the TSA predicting, that Thursday and Friday are going to be the busiest days at the airport. Brian.
All right. I mean, it looks pretty busy over there at O'Hare already. Maura Barrett, thanks so much. Appreciate it. And joining us now is NBC meteorologist Michelle Grossman. So, Michelle, lots of snow in the Great Plains right now. The videos that we just showed clearly make that apparent. But how much more can they expect?
Hey there, Brian. Great to see you. Yeah, it's been a tough couple of days there. We're still seeing the snow falling. We're not going to expect a lot more, maybe at 1, 2, 3 inches at most, but we're still seeing blizzard conditions in spots. So look at this storm on radar. It takes up most of the country, right? So you see the blue on the backside of this storm. That's where the cold air is coming in. So snow is falling. Some of it is heavy. Where you see the lighter blue, the whiter blue, that's where we're seeing the heaviest rain falling. In between there, we're seeing that pink and purple. That is freezing rain falling. That makes for very difficult travel. Then on the warm side of the system, we're seeing rain stretching all the way from the upper Midwest down through parts of the Southeast. Heavy rain falling in spots where you see those brighter colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows. That's where we're seeing the heaviest rain falling. So as we zoom in a little closer, now we're looking at the interior parts of the Northeast into the Mid-Atlantic, but it stretches so far. Winter alerts still in place for 7 million people. Blizzard warnings, that's in the purple there for portions of South Dakota and Nebraska, Kansas, into portions of Colorado. It will be tough over the next couple of hours before we start to really see it taper off. So how much snow can we expect? Well, we're expecting anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of snow, but we could see locally higher amounts. Brian?
Okay, well, I mean, as I slide in here, I wonder naturally if any of that storm system is going to come east towards us in New York. Any indication if that's going to be the case?
I love that you're here, first of all. Love this. Yes, well, we're going to head this to the east. We're not going to bring so much the snow with us, but we're going to bring the rain with us. So as we go throughout tomorrow, heavy rain soaking the Northeast, where you see these brighter colors, reds, oranges, yellows. And Brian, remember, we had all that rain about a week ago. So any additional rain is going to cause the chance for some streams, some creeks flooding. So this is going to all head to the east, and it's sort of going to linger. Most of these storms move out pretty quickly. This will not move out quickly. So we're talking Wednesday. We're talking Thursday, a band of snow setting coming up in portions of the Great Lakes. You can see that blue there, but also that trailing cold front. Ahead of it, we're warm still, so we're seeing that rain falling. Isolated showers lingering across the Northeast, and then we're still talking Friday. Localized travel issues across the Midwest, and we're looking for the potential for ice and wintry mix in the interior Northeast.
Okay. Well, I was trying to do my best Vanna White impression over here.
I love it.
Great to have you on set. Yeah. Thanks so much.
She doesn't turn, she taps.
Michelle Grossman, appreciate it. Well, still ahead, the season of giving and returning. The deadlines and fees you need to know about if the Christmas gift you got didn't fit or just straight up missed the mark. Plus, bonus battle, why Elon Musk and X are being taken to court over millions in unpaid bonuses. Stay with us. Why you won't be able to grab the new Apple Watch after all. That's ahead in the 5 things. But first, it is the day after Christmas, which means we may be looking at our gifts wondering if that was the right size or the right color or the right item at all. Either way, it means round 2 of retail madness. Check out this long line of shoppers in Chicago as people head out looking for post-holiday bargains or to return gifts.
The purchase is more fun than the return.
It's a hoodie.
You got that for Christmas?
I got that for Christmas.
And you're returning it?
Yeah, I'm returning. Well, I need a bigger size.
And although inflation continues to pinch American wallets this season, it looks like spending didn't really take a hit this year. Early data shows spending actually increased a little more than 3% compared to last year during the holiday season, according to MasterCard. Let's bring in Shaq Brewster, who's out at the mall for us. So, Shaq, tell us about what shoppers need to know ahead of making a return, which might include me, by the way.
You're asking for a friend, right? The big thing that you want to do is check with the retailer because it can change retailer by retailer, even based on what you get. It changes item by item. I want you to look at the big dates that you should be aware of for some of the bigger retailers. We're talking about January 13th. That's for Best Buy. You see January 15th for Apple. January 24th, that's a big date for Target for most of their electronics. And then January 31st, you have big retailers like Amazon, Walmart, Macy's, Kohl's. That's one of their biggest deadlines that they have there. So put that on the calendar if you're returning any gifts from those retailers. But one thing that you should also watch out for are the increasing fees associated with returns. We're talking about things like restocking fees, reshipping fees. A couple of ways to avoid them. Well, one, you could bring that item back to the store, that actual brick and mortar. You can bring that item back there. That'll help you get away and get around some of those reshipping fees. And you can also sign up for loyalty programs. There's H&M, for example. If you sign up for their loyalty program, they will waive some of those restocking and reshipping fees. And of course, if you don't have the receipt, if you lose the receipt or lost the receipt or were never given that receipt, a couple of tips there. Always try. Still go to the store, bring your tiers ready, have your tiers ready, and be ready to ask. But you can also try to keep the purchase information that you have on hand. Sometimes retailers can use your credit card or use that loyalty number to be able to track down the original source of that purchase. Right?
That's perfect. Even if you don't got the receipt, just shoot your shot. Shoot your shot. But sometimes, though, Shaq, I mean, you might not be able to return a gift for a few reasons. Maybe it's the type of thing that you're buying. Any tips to work around that?
Yeah, Brian, if you got a really nice watch, and just ship it over to me, and we'll see. We'll see. I'll handle it from you at that point. But one thing that you should always do if you can't return it, if you don't know if you can return it, you can always use eBay. You can always use Poshmark. You can resell it, essentially, and use those sites. If you don't want to deal with having to ship it to the random person, you can go on Craigslist, use Facebook Marketplace, and then you can always just donate it. You can donate it or regift it, as I just suggested that you do for any item that you no longer want.
All right, Shaq Bruce from Chicago. By the way, this is like a $20 Casio, so I'll hold on to this. But maybe I'll send you one in Chicago anyway. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right. I'll see you.
All right, well, let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, a new ban on sales of some of the latest Apple Watch models is now in effect. The Biden administration decided not to veto a ruling that says Apple is violating a medical tech company's patent for technology that reads blood oxygen levels. Apple is appealing. Number 2, X, this social media platform formerly known as Twitter, must go to court over unpaid bonuses. A federal judge made the decision after new allegations emerged claiming Elon Musk's company illegally withheld millions despite agreeing to pay. The initial lawsuit was filed on behalf of nearly 2,000 current and former X employees. Number 3, Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is telling supporters not to worry about him. He posted the comment on social media a day after being spotted for the first time in weeks. Navalny's team confirmed yesterday he is now being held at an Arctic prison known as Polar Wolf. He was being held near Moscow until seemingly disappearing in early December and missing a series of court hearings. Well, doctors and hospitals are bracing for more people potentially getting sick after those big holiday gatherings. Even before Christmas, the CDC reported high levels of respiratory illnesses in 17 states, primarily in the South. And COVID is still an issue, especially with the variant JN1, which is rapidly spreading and evolving to become the new dominant strain. The CDC says it makes up nearly half of current cases in the U.S. Joining me now is NBC News medical contributor Dr. Vin Gupta. Dr. Gupta, what is driving the increase in flu and COVID cases? And do we expect cases to go up substantially from here? And on that point, is this unique new variant something that we need to be mindful that has unique characteristics as we get together for the holidays?
Well, Brian, first of all, thank you for highlighting this and happy holidays. You know, this new variant that you're raising on for COVID-19, we know it's more transmissible, and we know that more contagiousness leads to more infection. A lot of people are not getting their booster shots. There's a lot of vulnerability out there, especially with travel. So that's why we're seeing in places like the Bay Area, 80% capacity in ICUs. Flu's just rising. We expect it to peak sometime in the end of January. So this combination 1-2 punch here is not surprising that we're seeing hospital strain in places like the Bay Area and the Southeast.
The CDC last week issued a health advisory to doctors and caregivers about the rise in respiratory illnesses. And I want to ask, how is this impacting hospitals? Because we know that, through the case of these surges, that could put an enormous strain on the capacity.
Well, we know that, in particular, children's hospitals, we think RSV has peaked. A respiratory syncytial virus impacts children, those that are older than 60. But we know that there isn't a lot of bed capacity anymore in children's hospitals across the country. Pediatric ICUs have really shut down in the wake of the pandemic. And so there isn't a lot of slack in the system there. We're seeing some strain in pediatric hospitals. And again, in places like the Southeast, a rising strain here. So I do believe you're already hearing that in 1/3 of counties across the United States, masking ordinances maybe should be taken into effect to protect hospital systems.
Dr. Vin Gupta, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Coming up, on alert, security ramping up across New York City ahead of the big New Year's Eve celebration, how a string of pro-Palestinian demonstrations is being factored into plans. Plus, a tiny nation with a huge role. Qatar has become vital in negotiations as tensions grow around the world. How the country has taken center stage despite a list of questionable moves. That's in our breakdown. With Christmas over, attention turning now to New Year's Eve celebrations and potential safety concerns as big crowds around the country get ready to ring in 2024. Since the Israel-Hamas war started, we've seen protests in major cities around the country. Here in New York yesterday, protesters and police clashed by the tree right out here in Rockefeller Center. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Goss joins us now. So, Stephanie, what can you tell us about those scuffles over the weekend? I mean, this has been kind of the latest in what's been a string.
Yeah, there have been a string of pro-Palestinian demonstrations throughout the city, whether it's Grand Central or here by Rockefeller Center. This weekend, last night, the scuffles took place. There were 6 arrests and no one was injured, but it is kind of the latest example of the disruptions. It wasn't just here in New York, too. There were some demonstrations in Chicago that disrupted some events. And as you say, this has been going on for weeks now.
And obviously, we're thinking about large kind of gatherings, and the next big one is going to be for New Year's Eve. I mean, you spent a lot of today in Times Square. What is the NYPD, at least here in the city, doing to prepare for that? Understanding that there could be a risk that maybe, there's a big demonstration that turns.
Well, for the up to 1 million people who go to Times Square for the ball drop, it will look very similar to what it's looked like in previous years. There'll be the barricades. Roads will be blocked off. There'll be bomb-sniffing dogs. There'll be uniformed police, also plainclothes police. But what's different this year is the context. And there has been this concern about an increased threat ever since the war began in Gaza, that there could be attacks here on our home soil. And we heard Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, warn Congress on multiple occasions that he was concerned about possible terrorist attacks here. There was also a bulletin sent out to law enforcement agencies, not just here in New York City, but around the country, specific concern about lone wolf attacks. So this would be someone who acted on their own, perhaps inspired, not as a group, inspired by a group, potentially targeting a group of people. And New Year's Eve, we've got a big group gathering here, but also in other cities.
I mean, this is kind of an interesting question because obviously the safest thing to do would just be to not let anyone in. So there's kind of this balance that you have to have between, you know, how stringent can you make your security measures while also letting people in. So
exactly.
that's what NYPD said about that.
Yeah, and the message is come in, attend these
Enjoy
events.
New Year's, yeah.
We're going to be focused on security. We are listening to what people are saying, listening to the traffic online. We're also paying attention on the ground. They're also asking the public just to be aware of your surroundings. If something doesn't look right, maybe it's not right, and report it to someone. But don't let any of this get in the way of your fun for the holiday season.
All right, NBC Stephanie Gosk, really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, NBC covers hundreds of stories each day, and because it's tough to read, watch, or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they're telling us in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, sticking with New Year's Eve, officials in Las Vegas are bracing for an influx of couples who want to say I do this year. Clark County, which includes Vegas, just opened, get this, a pop-up marriage license bureau for the week right in the airport. The date is pretty unique, December 31st, 2023, or 123-123. Again, if you write it out. Out of our Southeast Bureau, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene had a wrench thrown in her Christmas Day celebrations after she was swatted at her house in Rome, Georgia. Police in that city confirming a caller reported a murder-suicide in progress at Greene's address. The call was passed on to the Congresswoman's security team, who told police it was all a hoax. Apparently, this has happened before. The Republican Congresswoman writing on X, quote, "This is like the 8th time." And also out of our Western Bureau, rescue teams in Alaska are searching for a woman who disappeared into an Anchorage river while trying to save her dog. The woman was out for a walk by the river this weekend when her dog suddenly jumped in. She went to retrieve the dog only to fall through the ice and disappear. Rescue teams say they're using helicopters, wildlife troopers on the ground, and special search dogs to find the woman. Now back to our ongoing coverage in the Middle East. You are probably hearing the name Qatar more and more. The tiny Arab nation is suddenly playing a central role on the global stage, helping in hostage negotiations between Israel, Hamas, the U.S., and other regional powers. In today's breakdown, NBC's Ali Arouzi digs into how Qatar has rapidly become such a prominent diplomatic broker and some of the concerns about its growing clout.
Days of Israeli hostage releases and a temporary ceasefire with Hamas, brokered by familiar major powers in the Middle East, the United States, Israel, Egypt, and perhaps one less familiar, Qatar.
It's about 300,000 citizens. That's smaller than a lot of American cities, and they have a huge amount of gas wealth.
The small, rich nation has been a critical back channel to negotiate with the leadership of Hamas in recent weeks, but it's not the first time it's played a central role in major geopolitical events. They hosted the U.S. negotiations with the Taliban in 2020, helped facilitate the return of Ukrainian children home from Russia, and just recently even helped broker a U.S. prisoner exchange with Venezuela. So how did Qatar become so important? Experts say it's largely a strategy for survival.
They have a leadership that feels that they're squashed between two really big and powerful states.
Qatar is only about the size of Connecticut, right between massive feuding powers, Saudi Arabia and Iran. The country seeking to make itself indispensable, dubbed by some the Switzerland of the Middle East.
They're trying not to totally align with anybody, not align against anybody. Be a place that a lot of different people feel they need.
The country is home to a U.S. airbase, and President Biden designated Qatar a major non-NATO ally last year.
Our partnership with Qatar has been central to many of our most vital interests.
Diplomacy, only one facet in a wide-ranging soft power play.
All roads leading here.
Qatar hosting the World Cup in 2022, funding news service Al Jazeera, and opening a hub of Western university outposts in its capital, Doha. But behind the shiny new facades of Doha's towering skyscrapers, national security and terrorism experts worry about shadier dealings over the years. A Treasury Department official speaking out in 2014.
There are U.S. and UN-designated terrorist financiers in Qatar that have not been acted against under Qatari law.
And President Trump in 2017.
The nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level.
Saudi Arabia also led a blockade of the country over fears it was supporting terrorism and drifting too close to Iran. The media attaché for the state of Qatar responding to such allegations in a 2019 published letter to the Wall Street Journal, saying, in part, the state of Qatar offers no haven to those who support terrorism, and we stand with the United States to defeat those who support terrorism. But Qatar allowed Hamas to open an office in Doha, with the group's leadership spending time there regularly. It's also no secret that the country sends millions of dollars into Hamas-run Gaza, with an official saying publicly they will continue to do so. Whether that money ends up in civilian or terrorist hands is hotly debated. The Embassy of Qatar telling NBC News in part, without exception, all of Qatar's aid is fully coordinated with Israel, the U.S. government, and the United Nations. The aid is subject to strict guarantees and controls. The embassy also saying Hamas's Doha office was established in coordination with the U.S. government.
I've heard U.S. officials describe them as being one step away from terrorists. I've heard U.S. officials say the Qataris are absolutely essential to doing a whole range of things we need to do.
Putting Qatar at the center of some of the world's most important deliberations.
And Hallie joins us from London now. I mean, it's a really interesting take there in terms of just how, in some respects, Qatar has kind of been playing many sides of this here. But tell us that as Egypt tries to float their own proposal to end the war, what's the sense of Qatar's influence at the negotiating table?
Well, Brian, Qatar could play an instrumental role if it wants to, not because they're impartial, skilled negotiators, but because they wield an enormous amount of influence over Hamas, whether that's through financing or political backing. Now, we've talked about all the money Qatar sends into Gaza. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. And Qatar has hosted the Hamas Politburo since 2012. If they threaten to cut off that support as leverage, experts believe that could really impact Hamas's decision-making. Brian?
Ali Arouzi, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Up next, reflections on how to create a better America, the issues beyond the headlines, coming up in tonight's Original. Now we want to bring you today's Original with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been keeping an eye on, and we're inching, of course, closer and closer to 2024, and that means it's time for New Year's resolutions. So thinking about where we've been and where we're heading, our personal goals. But it's also a time to think about those things on a larger scale. How are we doing as a country? Where do we want to go? We sat down with author and New York Times contributing opinion writer Esau McCauley to reflect on what could make a better America. Here's Harry Smith.
We're headed into the basement of Chicago's historic Progressive Baptist Church with Esau McCauley.
There's kind of like the ethnic diversity of people of different shades and colors. And so it's really a picture of kind of God's kingdom.
And down here, there's more than art.
This is the pulpit that Martin Luther King preached in when he preached at Progressive Baptist Church.
McCauley attends church here. He's also theologian in residence. What do?
I write. I try to shape the imagination of people. That's what I think that's how I would describe my job.
Listening and writing.
The way that I explain it is this. If you say to a black person, explain racism to me, they might give you an answer. But what they're doing in their head, they're trying to figure out how much truth can I tell and what will this person understand? So there's always an editing process. And so in my writing, I'm not explaining, I'm allowing the audience to listen in. so they may learn that way.
Macaulay teaches New Testament at Wheaton, an evangelical Christian college. He writes opinion pieces for the New York Times and is the author of several books, his latest, How Far to the Promised Land? Which wonders?
If my grandmother doesn't make it into the middle class, or if her land is stolen from her, is that really something about her or something about America? Or are we comfortable with an America that requires that kind of exceptionalism from black people just to have an ordinary life?
How did growing up in the South shape you?
The thing about being poor and black and Southern is that all of American history happens to you. And so if you're saying it's the 1980s and we think about something like the war on drugs and crack epidemic, well, that's in my neighborhood. And you hear people talking about welfare queens and these things. These happen to me.
It felt as if practically the whole of society was waiting for us to fail so that people could say, we told you so. This is why we shouldn't help.
To Macaulay, help is in the name of the Lord. For him, Christianity is part of the solution. Christianity is sometimes viewed as the religion of the oppressor.
Yeah.
And some would say, this doesn't make any sense for black people to be Christians.
Yeah.
Why do you think it makes sense?
You might say that God didn't do enough to end slavery soon enough, but the slaves who were there at the time said God was with us during slavery and he helped to get us free. Maybe religion is something that just makes chains and it breaks them. We're sitting here in this church in Chicago because places like this were beacons of hope when black people were fleeing lynchings in the South, came to Chicago because they felt like maybe we can have a better life.
Are reparations the answer? Macaulay says America has paid them in the past, to some Native Americans, to incarcerated Japanese Americans, and even some former slave owners.
But the very mention of that idea in an African American context kind of is not only rejected, it is seen as almost morally offensive. And so the real question is, what is it about African Americans to make us uniquely unsuited for reparations?
Seems to me that the idea of reckoning with our past has, at least for a portion of America, not just grown out of fashion, but is rejected.
Yeah, one of the interesting things is we are in a battle against history. The idea that just telling the story of what happened in this country is now a matter of debate as relates to schools all over this country. And the very telling of the American story has become almost a political act. When we start erasing history, we open up the door for the sins of the past to revisit us.
What will it take to get to the promised land?
The deep owning of American history, where we own the truth of it. And then I think it's political imagination, where you have leaders who are willing to say, even if it costs me my political career, I'm going to stand on the side of justice.
Macaulay chooses to have faith in the future.
I remember George Floyd happened, and I was coming home, and I thought, you know, America demands too much wisdom of black parents. Because I have to tell my son and daughter what happened, but I also can't explain it to them in such a way that they lose hope. They got to know the reality of the world that they inhabit, but they also got to see the world as changeable, right? They have to understand that the promised land may be far, but it's actually reachable.
And Harry Smith joins me now. And, you know, Harry, what was so striking about that is it's kind of contextualizing, having to remember history to look forward and not make the same mistakes. And he had this quote in the New York Times op-ed that struck me. It was, all of American history happens to you. That's a lot to bear, though, right? It's a lot to process.
It's interesting. Some of what he writes about is not particularly new, but the way he walks through that ground again, seems to me it's from fresh eyes. And because he's this thoughtful, writing, listening person, it resonates with me. And when I started reading him in the Times, I just latched on. I couldn't wait till I saw another piece by him again. And every time he writes, I feel like I learned something important. And this book, Waiting for the Promised Land, just as a suggestion post-Christmas, it was on the Amazon Best Books of 2023. So this is a person whose voice is worth reading and worth listening to.
Harry Smith, thank you so much for bringing us that.
Brian, appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
Harry. And that is a wrap for this hour. Coverage picks up on NBC News Now, right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.